Everyone, this is a call. And what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about sexual energy, but I want to talk about sexual energy and what you do with it once it's been stirred up. There's three different ways in which the energy can be stirred up, and I'm going to approach those particular ways. But essentially, the end result of whether you're utilizing one of those three ways in terms of how you center it, that's kind of the important one of the important points, at least as it relates to this video. So it doesn't matter which of the three ways you're utilizing, and I'll get to those in a moment. But first, what I would like you to do is to press the subscribe button down below if you are not subscribed. And also keep in mind that if you find any of my content, this video in particular, if you find it interesting or helpful, please share. So with all that said, let me go on to the topic. So the thing I want you to kind of understand about sexual energy, one, is that it is a foundational energy. So sexual energy being a foundational energy means that it's not like some sort of separate little packet, right? There's no like, oh, sexual energy is in this packet and cognitive functioning is in that packet. It's all connected, right? So what you do with your sexual energy necessarily impacts all the other aspects of who you are as a human being. So meaning your sexual energy, if you abuse it, it could lead to fogginess, let's say, just kind of fuzziness in your head, having a lack of clarity, feeling disconnected from the body, feeling sort of, I guess, like ambivalent about life, not feeling connected to life, not being able to smell things clearly. Again, it's all connected. If your digestion is weak, etc. So when we're looking at sexual energy, one of the things that ends up happening is oftentimes we'll apply even those of us who do practices will apply a technique, let's say at the moment of orgasm. And let me give you a quick example. And I will post the video that's the full version of this below, so you can go look at that video if you're interested. But there's a technique, and I guess in Montauk Chia and some of these other Taoist practitioners, and as well as let's say at the Body Electric School, they might call it the big draw. I call it Mahabandha. It's my background's in yoga, so it's Mahabandha is the great lock. So let's say hypothetically that at the moment of orgasm, you do one of these. Let me go ahead and lower this a little bit. All right. So let's say at the moment of orgasm, it's about to happen. What you do is, as the orgasm starts, you pull in the belt line, you contract from the tip of the penis towards the base, lift the testicles, lift the perineum, contract the anus. So that is called root lock. So that's the first step. So again, the orgasm is happening here, right? So the next step, you can do one of two things. If the air is out, then what you do is you lift up on the belt line and you create a vacuum, Uddiyana Bandha, or a diaphragm lock. So that's the second step. Another version of the second step, because sometimes that's way too many moving parts when it comes to orgasm. So the second step, theoretically, you could also inhale. So you have root lock already pulled. You inhale a sniff of air. So you're engaging the diaphragm. And that's the important part, is that you're engaging the next step up, is the diaphragm. Neck lock, pulling that spine straight. Tongue hits the roof of the mouth. Eyes roll up towards the center part of the head. So what does all that do? And again, I'll post the video down below that has the full description. What that does is that it's a basic principle here. And I'll probably get the cliche wrong here, but essentially energy flows to where your attention goes. So what I did there is I had my attention on my pelvic floor. I had my attention at my solar plexus, the diaphragm. I had my attention at the neck by straightening the neck and straightening the spine. I had my attention at the tongue. I had my attention rolling up into the center part of the head. So I am drawing the sexual energy upward at the moment of orgasm. And I will tell you, this is incredibly powerful if you practice. So you can practice that without sex at all. And that technique is actually really, really good for the topic of this video in general, which is centering the charge. So if you that could be one of your practices you could utilize to center the charge. Um, Now, let's say you're average Joe and you don't have a technique you do at the moment of orgasm. And let's say you just let go bloop bloop, right? So it discharges all that's gone. The energy is basically lost. Well, what it does is it creates kind of an imbalance or a gap. And in yoga, they say the man loses his root. Um, I don't I can't say I know precisely what they're talking about when they say someone loses their root, but what I do believe they're talking about is that the man loses interest in the body, in the form, in the ability of the body to experience pleasure and sensuality and have desire at that moment. It's gone. Pre-cum, post-cum, you know this, men are very different, right? There's a lot of buyer's remorse out there when like guys are engaged in particular sexual activities and they have an ejaculation and then they're like, oh, what did I do? You know what I'm talking about. So that would be the second thing, the second style in which sexual energy becomes churned up. So one is the practice. Let's say you have a practice and you direct the energy at that moment. So that very powerful upward drive of energy can stir you up. It's not balanced necessarily, right? So the second step, bloop bloop, energy discharge, the body becomes less interesting and the individual becomes disengaged. So in other words, there becomes a gap that needs to be filled back up. And it gets filled back up through the application of the conscious mind connecting to the body through techniques or practices, etc. And I'll get to that in a moment. Third way you could stir up sexual energy would be, let's say, like if you're one of these guys who likes to edge. So you edge, you build yourself up towards, ejaculation. Let's say 10 is an ejaculation on a scale of 1 to 10. So you build yourself to like a 7 or an 8, then you stop. Well, again, you get the energy all stirred up, but it has no outcome, no conclusion, which is perfectly fine. But the point is that the energy is stirred up, right? So it's moving around. And so what we want is we want that energy centered. So the another way to kind of like look at this is as the energy is pressurizing upward, it starts to activate other centers, other glands, things like that. So we want this to have a target, let's say. And so one of the ways you can target is you can use the spinal cord, and that's going to be the technique I'm going to show you guys for this video is spinal breathing. So with spinal breathing, you can essentially shunt all the energy towards the spine. And again, the energy flows to where the attention goes. Because what we're trying to prevent here is we're trying to prevent all the water flowing back down. When I say water, I'm talking about sexual energy, back down and settling back in the sacral area. And again, it's not a problem if it settles in the sacral. I mean, that's kind of where sexual energy lies. But the issue here is that the conscious mind, it will become, I guess the horny feeling will continue to rise again and again and again and again. And so as the horny feeling continues to arise, it's almost like this insatiable thing that's never satisfied. And it can be kind of tormenting on some level. So what these techniques are attempting to do is they're attempting to give you, the individual, I guess, sort of mastery over your own domain. And so the only way that can happen is if you're consciously aware of what the energy is doing and you don't become a slave to that sexual energy. And I think a lot of spiritual practice or systems, they have this kind of negative tone around sexual energy sometimes. And I think that negative tone has to do with like people, particularly men, becoming too anchored into sexual energy and they become obsessed with it. And what ends up happening is when we become obsessed with our sexual energy, that water settles in that sacral area all the time. What ends up happening is we start to color our reality with sex. Everything we see turns into sex, and essentially we become predatorial in some particular way, where like not a single ass that walks by us we're not looking at. We've all, I think, been there to some degree. So another way I want to this is the last analogy I'll use before I tell you the technique here. So another way I would like you to look at this is that I want you to think about how to there's an expression. Water up, fire down. We want a cool mind, but we want a fire in the belly, right? So cool mind, fire in the belly. So water up means we want to steam that sexual energy. So we're going to look at the sexual energy as a little pond. So it's water in its aqueous state, in liquid form. So how do we steam that water? Well, you do it with the chakra that lies above it, which is the solar plexus. The solar plexus is like the sun. So how do we engage the solar plexus? We direct our will through feeling and sensing and through the application of a technique, a contraction or a relaxation or whatever it may be. So if I apply my will down to my solar plexus, essentially what ends up happening is, let's say I'm doing some breathing. It could be any sort of technique really here, but the idea is that if I'm consciously engaging my sexual energy, I'm building the sexual energy up. I'm breathing. I'm building. I'm building. I'm breathing. Staying very, very conscious. I'm not going into fantasy. I'm not engaging pornography. What you do is you end up shining that sun, which is your will, which is your solar plexus, on that sexual energy, which causes it to start to evaporate and turn into a gaseous state. So as it comes into a gaseous state, it begins to move upward. So this is an internal pressure, or like hydraulics. So that's another way you can kind of like look at this. So now the technique. So the technique is, it's fairly simple. It really is fairly simple. And again, the idea, and I'm going to have several videos after this in which I'm going to do techniques that are a little bit more complex perhaps, but I just want to do this particular simple technique. I'm not going to make it overly complicated for this video. So energy stirred up, you had sex, you masturbated, whatever you did. First thing you want to do is you want to kind of set your posture. So you want to go ahead and anchor. You want to anchor down, keep the spine upright, chin tucked. And again, this is after the energy is mixed. So you can do something with your hands here. So the hands, we're going to, like I said, I generally just do a seal. So balancing the weight across the palms, essentially you bring the polarities together. Left hand negative charge, right hand positive charge, however you want to perceive it. And you create that seal. You want to feel the pressure across the base of the palms, so across the heel of the palms, across the pads, and across each one of the fingers. Really, really feeling that pressure. My hands are slightly out from the chest. And so the first thing I do when I'm, again, giving myself a very quick amount of time, that's the other thing I want to say is that this technique, there's actually two techniques wrapped into one. It should take you no more than 5 minutes to do this practice. And let me tell you that if you do this on a regular basis, it has amazing results over time. I'll just put it that way. So creating that seal, first thing you want to do is you want to do breath of fire or some sort of other oxygen saturation technique. Breath of fire is done from below the navel. So you can think about 2 fingers below the navel. That's approximately your belt line. Now, breath of fire is the technique I use. There's also bellows breath. There's several different kinds of breathing you can do in order to sort of saturate with oxygen. I tend to do it through the nose because I feel less dull. If I do it through my mouth, I sometimes feel loopy and dull. So generally, I want to do it through my nose. Again, I'm doing breath of fire, which happens from the navel point. And all breath of fire is when I pull in my belt line, air goes out. When I relax, air comes in. So, okay, that's all it is. It's just pumping in and out of the navel. The other option that I mentioned, which is called bellows breath is just diaphragmatic. So, just to wrap it up and down. Again, they're both effective for oxygen saturation. I prefer to engage the navel point because the navel point, once again, is connected to the solar plexus, which is that sun, which generates that heat in the belly. It's drawing the awareness down again Fire down, water up. So again, seal with the hands. We're going to go ahead, well, let me explain the second part. It'll be easier that way. So second part of this is after you've done breath of fire, let's say 45 seconds, and I'll do this with you guys, then you want to move your awareness to the back side of the body. So you're going to do spinal breathing at that point. And so the spinal breath, you could do alternate nostril breathing for this as well. So if you decide you want to inhale left, exhale right, exhale left, doing the sort of balancing of the nostrils, you can do spinal breathing that particular way. But today, I'm just going to teach you breathing through both nostrils. So you're going to inhale through the nostrils. You're going to move your awareness. You're going to feel that air moving up into the sinuses, but you want to draw your awareness to the back side of the head, that little notch on the back of the head, the occiput. And then you want to follow, as you continue to inhale, as you continue to fill, you want to move your awareness down your spine towards your tailbone. That's on inhale. And as you exhale, you want to go ahead and move upward, up the spine, following that stream of air back out of the nose. So inhaling down the spine, exhaling, coming up and out. And again, these are long, deep breaths. And it also helps when you're doing these long, deep breaths that you kind of pay attention to, I guess, contractions or tensions you might have. So for instance, a lot of us hold tension along our pelvic floor. So as you're inhaling, relax your anus, relax your perineum, relax your genitals, relax your navel point, relax your hips. It allows more air to pull in that way. And you want to do this in a very steady flow. So you're inhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, however long, but you want to draw it out. These are long, deep breaths. So let's go ahead and once again, we'll start by creating a seal. And we're going to do breath of fire for 45 seconds, and then we'll do, let's say, let's do 5 breaths up and down the spine. So pull up nice and tall. Inhale a deep breath. Exhale completely. Inhale half breath. And we'll go ahead and begin breath of fire. So once again, when your belt line pulls in, air goes out, and we relax, air comes in. Nice straight spine. You can direct your nose down towards or your eyes down towards the tip of the nose while doing this. Or you can roll the eyes up into the center of the part of the head. All right, so that was more or less 45 seconds. So it's inhale a deep breath. Retain the breath briefly, relaxing your pelvic floor, relax the hips, relax the genitals, relax your belt line, relax your shoulders, elbows, wrists. Feel the pressure across the palms. Then go ahead and exhale. So now we're going to move right into long, deep spinal breathing. Like I said, we'll do about 5 breaths. So inhale, drawing your awareness up into the sinus, to the back of the head. Continued inhale, drawing your awareness all the way down the spine, feeling and sensing as you're moving down the spine towards the tailbone. Retaining the breath briefly, exhaling, moving back up and out. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And let's do one final breath. Inhaling. And exhale. Go ahead and relax your hands. All right. So that was 45 seconds of breath of fire and 5 spinal breaths, more or less. I may have done 6, I don't know. Regardless, like I said, that took very little time. All right, so again, if you could commit yourself to doing something like this after you ejaculate, after you stir up the sexual energy, it'll help consolidate that charge. It'll help circulate that energy through the body. It'll help I guess it'll help like a lot of different aspects in terms of your mental clarity. It'll help your vitality. It'll help with your sort of immune system. Again, the sexual energy is connected to everything else. So with all that said, hopefully you appreciate this video, and thank you for watching.